Your Excellency, honored speakers, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Stockholm School of Economics, I welcome all of you to this seminar on Sweden and India, New Partnership Opportunities. It's a great honor for the Stockholm School of Economics to host a significant event such as this one, organized under the banner of Make in India, Grow in India, coordinated by the Embassy of India to Sweden with the help today of India Unlimited. To SSE, the Stockholm School of Economics, the opportunities that globalization affords, and yes, the challenges it poses, is an important feature of our time. But well before the globalization became a household name, which is actually quite recently, SSE had set out to prepare its students for the need to take international developments into account. From the very first day when the school flung its door open back in 1909, international trade and conditions elsewhere have been at center of attention, along with traditional business pursuits such as accounting and marketing. It's no coincidence, actually, that one of the workhorses of international trade theory, the Heckscher-Ohlin model, actually has its roots in this very building on the 7th floor, right above you, if I'm not mistaken. So global is something that we're familiar with. But we need, of course, to keep up with the times, and this event is a natural part of such a process. It was also for that reason most natural for us to launch in 2014 the SSE Global Talks, where the school, along with a number of embassies in Stockholm, provide an arena for international guests, for politicians and top civil servants, for faculty and students, and the Swedish business community, not the least, with which we are very proud to have strong and long-lasting relations, as a rallying point to discussing the major issues and opportunities of our time. To the Stockholm School of Economics, this event is important because it makes a statement. It makes a statement with respect to what we aspire to be and also what we aspire to inculcate in our students. So to us, it's a great honor, it's a great privilege, but also part of what we consider best practice to be able to welcome you all this afternoon. And thereby, I again wish you heartily welcome to this afternoon session that would no doubt would be very interesting and inspiring, I would think. And I will now leave the word to today's moderator, Mr. Robert Suka, which will take care of the practicalities of running this affair so as we could focus on the substantive contents in a smooth fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. It's my pleasure to be here today. I'm Robin Sucka, head of the Sweden-India Business Council. We have a little bit of a slight change in the program. We have the honor of having from FICCI also Dr. Didar Singh, who's the Secretary General of FICCI as well. The President was not able to make it, so we're really happy that you took your time and actually came instead. We know how busy you are. Thank you so much. I would like also to say there are two hashtags up there you can see, SSS Global Talks and India Sweden. So you're encouraged also to tweet, it's not tweet, as much as you want. There's also, if you take pictures, you can upload them as well. So the more the merrier in that sense of information of people who know what we're doing here today. Now, the Make in India campaign is, as you know, a quite large thing. It's gone global in that sense. And from the Indian point of view, or the Indian side, I'd just like to mention also that you could have no better ambassador for this brand mark than the Indian ambassador to Sweden, Banashri Bose Harrison. The floor is yours. Thank you.
State secretaries, other very, very distinguished guests, but above all, my dear friends of India who are here for this seminar on a Friday afternoon, a very warm welcome. Separated by geographical distance, Sweden and India have a surprising number of things in common, not the least being the shared values of democracy, pluralism, freedom of expression, respect for rule of law, and so on and so on and so on. I know that most ambassadors say this about whichever country they are posted in, but in case of Sweden and India, this really happens to be true. Swedish companies were among the first to assist India's industrialization. Ericsson ushered in telephone communication into India in 1903. Swedish Match brought us light in 1920. I don't have enough time to list the remaining 168 companies which have made their way into India since then and are still helping our growth story. But despite this early start and the excellent political relations and the high level of comfort with shared values and a common business language, I'm referring to English, creates, our economic engagement is still, I would say, like an iceberg. 9/10 of what is possible is still unseen and unattained. Our commodity trade is about $2.4 billion. I'm in the Stockholm School of Economics. I have to give you some figures, right? The trade is just $2.4 billion. Services trade is $1.3 billion. Investment from Sweden to India is just about $1 billion. And Indian investment into Sweden, though it's growing, is still relatively small. Just about 600 to 700 million. In many other countries, for many other countries, these statistics may seem quite good. But in our case, I feel we haven't even scratched the surface of what is possible. The fact is that Sweden has many technologies, services, and products which are ideally suited to India's quest for rapid and sustainable development. And we, on our part, have many things which Swedish companies need. We have young, skilled manpower. We have a booming market. We have the ability to collaborate with you. There is really a perfect fit. A marriage made in heaven. Though maybe that's not such a good example because there are too many divorces in Sweden. The Make in India program, which was launched by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi in September 2014, and we are truly fortunate to have its architect with us today, Mr. Amitabh Kant. This program has made the perfect fit even more perfect, if it's possible to make perfection more perfect. Make in India includes making India digital, making India the home of zero-defect manufacturing with minimum environmental impact, building smart cities, using waste to generate energy. Each one of you here in this room knows that Sweden has strong capabilities in each and every one of these priority areas. If we all do our bit to create an awareness of these new opportunities, and both governments, I look to myself, I look to you. If both governments create a facilitating and enabling environment to foster partnerships between large as well as SME companies, and here I look at our business association, the top representatives who are here. If this happens, I personally have no doubt that our mission to like our India's mission to the Mars, Sweden-India partnership will also take off towards uncharted heights. This seminar, ladies and gentlemen, is a step in the direction of that takeoff. This is the agenda that I believe we are setting for what you are going to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. In his previous position, he was the advisor on foreign affairs to the present Prime Minister of Sweden, the State Secretary to the Minister of Enterprise and Innovation, Mr. Oskar Stenström. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. Secretary Kant, Ambassador, very nice words. Students, visitors, business. Let me start by thanking you, Ambassador, for organizing this event together with the Stockholm School of Economics. As a student from KTH, it's, of course, I'm delighted to be here now. It wouldn't be better there. It's a perfect example of the cooperation and the new start in the relation between Sweden and India, namely people-to-people contact, business, student, cultures. We just concluded a very good bilateral trade talk. We have signed a new cooperation treaty between Sweden and India at the Prime Minister's office. We had a very lovely lunch. You had offered me, when I'm going to India, yoga classes and medicine that I will get my hair back. That's a promise. And that I will stay 39 years old. So now I'm going home to tell this to my family. So it means that I have to go soon. But this is the first visit from the new Indian government to Sweden, and it's very timely. It couldn't be better, and also a representative with the State Secretary responsibility for innovation and trade. That's also my responsibility, so let's work together. Today's seminar, we will learn more about India. The dynamic development of your country is very impressive. For every one of us who has traveled India, we know it's not one country, it's everything. And then I really mean everything. And I'm particularly pleased to hear about the Indian Prime Minister's new program, Make in India. That's what it's all about. That's why we're here today. I would be interested to learn more how the Indian government intends to make India the global center for manufacturing, KTH, and investments, Stockholm School of Economics. My government, job creation is really the center of our priority. We have promised that we will have the lowest unemployment rate in the European Union by the year 2020. And to achieve this, we need more investments, we need more cooperation, and we need innovation. Innovation and trade are the key elements for us to succeed, and we have to work hard on both. And the world is now facing a number of challenges. Health, there are more serious things on losing your hair, demographic changes, climate actions, resource efficiency. These are all global challenges. And we would like to solve these challenges in a way that also strengthen our competitiveness, growth, and jobs. And innovation is the center of finding these solutions. That's why our Prime Minister, my Prime Minister, soon will launch an Innovation Council to put the innovation in the center of the policy. It is only an EU summit which was suddenly arranged in the coming weeks, which had forced us to postpone it another week. But this will send a clear message to our business, to academia, and to the students that we have to be better in these areas. And we also would like to find new solutions, how we can improve. Climate technology and life science will be the first pillars for this Innovation Council to grab. Both areas are also highly relevant in our bilateral relations. Now I ran out of battery. And trade, my other responsibility. We are heavily dependent on export and import. Free trade is crucial for the Sweden's growth and jobs. We work actively to enforce more progressive international trade arrangements. The debate here in Sweden is much about our upcoming agreements with the United States, the TTIP, but also with Japan, South Korea, with China, and eventually with India. At the same time, we are standing up for the environment, the employees' interest, and people's health. India is a natural trade partner to our companies, and to the potential of increased trade is substantial. As the ambassador mentioned, these figures is equally the number what we are trading with Estonia. Everyone understands the potential which we have untapped with India. And we know now that India also shares our view on the benefit of free trade. I'm proud to say that Swedish companies has been present in India Since the beginning of the 20th century, 1903, Ericsson rolled out their activities, and more are entered every year. Today, more than 150 companies are present in India, and we're opening up new companies every month. These companies employ almost 150,000 persons and another 700,000 through sub-providers. And according to our latest business climate survey, which I think is present here today, we can see that 80% of the Swedish companies are planning to expand operations and employ more people in Sweden and in India. SCA is opening up a factory in Pune. Scania is opening up a factory for buses in Bangalore. Our Minister of Infrastructure will be there together with you. IKEA is opening up stores. Secretary Kant has also promised me to assemble a Billy shelf before I'm coming. H&M is opening up stores all over India, just to mention a few. Further improvements of business climate in India will open up for more investments. I therefore welcome the strong commitment from the new Indian government on economic reforms and governance. These reform plans send a very clear message to the world. India is back, on track, open for business and investments. And I'm also pleased that the rapid increase of Indian companies in Sweden. I believe that the Swedish market offers Indian investors several advantages, including world-class technology and innovations, a competitive business environment, and highly educated persons. Finally, this seminar is mainly about inspirations. It's Friday afternoon, but we will succeed. India is a country on the move, and I see India as an even more natural partner for Sweden and the European Union. That's why India must be top of our mind every week. We have to think about how we grab these opportunities every week, and we will do it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure I'm quite happy with the hair loss, but that 39-year-old I'm very happy with. That'll be good. Our next speaker, he was the former CEO of the Delhi-Mumbai corridor, which I think you've heard about. It's a massive undertaking. And now the State Secretary for the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Mr. Amitabh Kant. There you go, please.
Oscar, Ambassador to Sweden, Banashri, the Swedish Ambassador to India, Martin, who's heading Scandinavian, whose plant will shortly open in India, students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and a delight to be in the midst of all of you. Actually, my minister, Mrs. Sitaraman, who's here, who was supposed to be speaking here today. I'm a very poor substitute for her. In many ways, I'm like Einstein's driver. See, Einstein had just won the Nobel Prize, and he was going around speaking in England, and he'd given about almost 350 speeches. He was being feted in every single university of the United Kingdom. And wherever he used to go, his driver used to accompany him everywhere. And at the end of his 350 speeches, he was invited to the Columbia University in the United States of America. And nobody had seen Einstein in the United States of America. And the driver told Einstein that actually, I've heard you 351 times, and I can give a better speech than what you can ever give. So Einstein challenged him, and they went to the University of Columbia, and the driver sat there, and Einstein sat in the audience. And the driver gave a brilliant speech. He was absolutely stupendous. I mean, it was the most brilliant speech one could ever hear. He was brilliant, and the audience got up, stood, and clapped and clapped and clapped for him. And then the Chancellor said that, ladies and gentlemen, now we'll have a question and answer session. So one of the students got up and asked him a really tough, complex, complicated question. And this driver said, you know, your question is so easy, that even my driver sitting in the audience So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll speak, but if you have any questions, please address them to my president. It's a great pleasure to be in the midst of all of you. The key challenge for the Indian economy is to grow at rates of 9 to 10% per annum, year after year, for 3 decades or more. To be able to create jobs for its very young population. Our population is very young. 72% of our population is below the age of 32. And I think this demographics is the biggest and the most salient feature of the world today. And many economists don't recognize this, but the aging of the population in the West, with 8,000 Americans retiring a day, 8,500 Germans retiring a day, but the Indian population getting younger and younger with every day till 2040 is one of the biggest features of the world. It's like a huge lot of baby boomers unleashed in India. These are young Indians, very aspirational, very, very young, and they have driven this government to power and authority with one single commitment by the leader of the party, Narendra Modi, and that is he's going to drive India back to a high trajectory growth rate. A very high trajectory growth rate on a sustained basis for a long time. And that's the commitment which the Prime Minister has given. He's been voted to power by a very, very aspirational young Indian. And therefore the challenge is really to drive growth. And this government has brought in a completely new energy, a new vitality, a new vibrancy, and a new dynamism to India in many ways. First and foremost, this government has unleashed reforms in the area of ease of doing business. It has started scrapping rules, procedures, paperwork, acts, laws, so that people can get in and just start doing business straight away. Start getting into business, it believes in market, and it says that either you compete or you go bust. And therefore, the key challenge which he's unleashed, to my mind, the key reform that he's unleashed is this business about making India an easy place to do business. And somebody talked about, in the last meeting, government-to-government meeting, Oscar raised the issue about corruption. And let me tell you, in the last 7 months, there's not even been a whiff of corruption. Not even been a whiff of corruption, and there's integrity flowing down in a transparent manner, decisions are being taken. And so the intention is that you make India an easy place to do business. The second key thing what this government has done is to unleash reforms in the foreign direct investment areas. It has done several things which were unthinkable some days back, and that is that it has opened up railways to 100% foreign direct investment. It has opened up the construction sector to 100% foreign direct investment. It has taken 60% of the items which were controlled under the defense sector and said you can come in and get through the automatic route and start doing defense manufacturing. And for the balance, which are hardcore defense, it says that you can go up to 49%, in cases of modernization and state of the art, you can go up to 100%. It has opened up insurance, it has opened up medical devices, it has made India one of the most liberal economies across the world as far as foreign direct investment is concerned. And actually the latest study by the OECD says that India is the easiest place as far as foreign direct investment is concerned. So it's opened up the foreign direct investment regime so that people from across the world can come in and get into manufacturing across a vast array of activities. The third thing which this government has done is to focus on infrastructure. How do you make India a better place in terms of the quality of infrastructure? What it has done is it's to drive new corridors, industrial corridors, the Delhi-Mumbai corridor, the Chennai-Bangalore corridor, the Vizag-Chennai corridor, the Bangalore-Mumbai corridors, so that you can accelerate transportation, on the back of them drive new urbanization and new manufacturing. Just to give you an example, that if you were to produce goods in the northern part of India and transport them to the port on the western coast of India in Mumbai, it will take you 14 days. But once the Delhi-Mumbai freight corridor comes up in 2017, goods will reach within 14 hours. So from 14 days to 14 hours, that will be the paradigm shift. And on both sides of this, we are creating new cities, completely new cities in India. And therefore, new roads, new highways, new industrial corridors. This is the big driving energy. And India's moved forward in terms of new smart cities, 100 new smart cities to be created, 50 new metros to be made. Now, one of the challenges for India is that it has been a very, very reluctant urbanizer. It has been a very reluctant urbanizer, largely because of its belief and what its founding father had said. Mahatma Gandhi had said that our villages will be economically viable, they'll be self-independent, and therefore people need to stay in rural areas. And that has been the political vision till now. For the first time, you have a prime minister who's talking about urbanization, who's talking about creating good, sustainable urbanization. And therefore, it must be understood that in India, as we talk here today, every minute there are 30 people who are moving from rural areas to urban areas. And urbanization will be one of the key drivers of growth. Cities worldwide occupy just 3% of the land, but 75% of the GDP comes from cities. But they also account for about 2/3 of the energy consumption. They account for about 80% of the greenhouse emission. And while Europe, America have urbanized fully, and while China's urbanization is coming to an end, the process of urbanization in India has just begun. It has begun as of 2014. And what India will see in the next 3 to 4 decades is huge amount of urbanization. As the latest McKinsey study says, that by 2030, you will have 350 million Indians getting into the process of urbanization. By 2050, 700 million Indians will get into the process of urbanization. And therefore, the challenge is, how do you create 2.5 Americas by 2050? That is the challenge for India. That is the big challenge for India. 2.5 Americas in a far more innovative and a far more sustainable manner than what the West has done. See, when the West urbanized, land, gas, and water were all cheaply available. And because they were cheaply available, America could live in New Jersey, travel to New York, guzzle gas. It could create cities like Atlanta, where 98.2% of the people travel by car. And when you compare it with a similar city like Barcelona, same amount of population, exactly the same amount of population, the ecological footprint of Atlanta is 12 times more. And therefore, you can't repeat the experience of the Western world in urbanization anymore. That phase is gone, that luxury is not available to India. And therefore, the challenge is, how do you do far more innovative and far more sustainable urbanization in India? And therefore, I think urbanization will be one of the key challenges of this government. And the fourth key thing to my mind is, how do you make India a hub for design, innovation, and creativity? And we have a very young population. And the challenge is, how do you make India a nation of job creators? How do you make India a nation of innovators? How do you make India a nation of job creators rather than of job seekers? And therefore, a lot of stress is being laid on innovation, on unleashing venture funds, on unleashing and supporting young entrepreneurs, on creativity, and driving this forward. And therefore, as we move forward, to my mind, the key issues are going to be ease of doing business, is going to be opening up more and more of foreign direct investment, is going to be urbanization, is going to be design and innovation and young Indians. And that's going to be a big challenge, because if you, over the last 5 to 6 decades, if you've lived on controls, if you've lived on socialism and you're moving to market, if you're moving to doing away with controls, you need to take the people along. You need to take people along. And therefore, taking the mindset of India forward is a big challenge. And then, of course, is working in very close partnership. India is a very large country. It's bigger than 24 countries of Europe, plus another about 30,000 kilometers. So since it's a large country, many of the Indian states are much bigger than many European countries. And therefore, it's about cooperative federalism. How do you work in partnership with the states? How do you take the states along? The key interesting thing about India is that people want change. People want reforms. People want to grow. People want to get into double-digit growth. And therefore, this government, during the last 7 elections held, 7 elections have been fought since this government came to power. All 7 states have been won either by the Bharatiya Janata Party or its allies across. And each one of the states where reforms were being blocked parties have lost. And therefore, this government has had the courage, the determination to push for reforms in a very big way. And actually, it has spearheaded reforms. It has introduced the Goods and Services Tax Bill in Parliament, which will make India one common market. It has yesterday pushed for doing away with any kind of retrospective tax. It has done away with the Vodafone tax, which had caused India great damage. It has talked about consistency, predictability, and clarity in the tax policies. And therefore, it has said that India will have a consistent, predictable, and very clear policy for every single investor across the world. And therefore, the tax regime has been put right. It has moved on to do several other radical reforms. The land acquisition bill, by getting it right, it has brought the eminent domain of the state back to areas. There are several other key challenges. The key challenges are enormous. There are many challenges that this government will face. But I think the key thing is that it must create jobs, it must create growth. And as we get along, India will grow in several areas of growth. It will grow in very high-tech, advantageous areas of like biotechnology, nanotechnology, and so on. But it will also have to create jobs. You can't have growth without jobs, and therefore the challenge is to create jobs. And therefore it will have to get into several labor-intensive sectors. And the challenge is that one of the key challenges is, as we've grown and advanced, is that the labor intensity of manufacturing has been falling. It has been falling sharply. And therefore, it will necessarily have to focus on areas like textiles, areas like food processing, areas like leather, textiles, gems and jewelry, etc., where you create large jobs. There's been some debate in India. There's been some debate in India on whether India should manufacture for India. The challenge is that India's growth has largely been driven by its services sector. 60% of our GDP comes from the services sector. India has produced some of the best programmers from across the world, and if you look at Cisco, IBM, Microsoft, all the programmers come from India. We've invested heavily in our higher education, so we produce some of the finest minds. Now, the services sector has grown, but the manufacturing sector has hovered around 16% of the GDP. The challenge is, how do you take it to 25%? How do you create 100 million new jobs? 100 million new jobs in the next 8 to 10 years. That's the challenge for India. And that's the challenge that Prime Minister Modi is confronted with. So you'll have to necessarily focus on labor-intensive sector. There's been some debate, as I said, whether you should produce for India and whether the world provides you an opportunity to make a huge export push into this market, as China once got. The point is that nobody produces only for the domestic market. You get in for a domestic market. But when you produce to global size and scale. You produce because you are living in a globalized world and you have to be a part of a global supply chain. And therefore, when Hyundai got into India, it looked at the vast demand of the domestic market. But today, it actually exports to 123 countries, 48% of its production. The Suzuki cars, the Toyota cars, Honda cars, they all cater to the Indian market, but they also penetrated markets of Africa, Middle East, from India. So the manufacturing will be for both the Indian and the export market. Now, this government has unleashed several major changes. The Make in India program, to drive manufacturing, to create jobs. The Digital India campaign, to use technology to leapfrog. How does a young country like India use technology to leapfrog with a very young population? And Skill India, to bring in entrepreneurship, to train people, give them vocational education, and all these programs converge in many ways. They integrate and converge. But the fact remains that India has a very young population. It has a very young population. It has 950 mobile consumers. 950 million mobile consumers. In India, we add 8.5 million mobiles every month. 8.5 million mobiles every month. And therefore, India's growth story will be a very different story from what the rest of the world, particularly the European world, has seen. India is going to use mobile technology. India is going to see innovation. India is going to see youth power to skip the process of brick and mortar and use mobile telephony to create innovation, growth, and drive growth in India. India and Sweden have had a long relationship. Much has been talked about. But there are several areas we converge, areas of water, areas of waste management, areas of innovation. These are huge areas of growth as we go along, as we urbanize. These are areas where India and Sweden can work together to create a completely new world. India's story is not a story about India. India's story is about innovation, it's about sustainability, it's how do you create a better world for tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. India and Sweden should work together to create that better world for tomorrow. Thank you very much.
On the 24th of September 2014, at the cost of a mere $72 million, India proved to the world that the sky is not the limit. And this was recognized by the world. The international community stood up and applauded. With the same speed and efficiency, India as a country has been launched on a high trajectory of growth. Archaic, opaque and dysfunctional rules, regulations, processes, acts and laws that inhibited growth have been eliminated. The process of changing the work culture is taken up as the most important work. Business process re-engineering has been undertaken and departments have been converged with one single objective: make governance efficient and effective, transparent and responsive. Ease of doing business is the new mantra. In a creative move, the Planning Commission has been replaced by the National Institution for Transforming India, Niti Aayog. This will play a pivotal role in India's faster and yet inclusive development. A new wave of economic reforms has been unleashed. FDI has been opened up vigorously in insurance, rail, defense, construction and medical devices sectors. A vast number of defense items have been deregulated. The diesel price regime has been dismantled. The government has initiated bold and radical measures to reinvigorate growth. The Goods and Services Tax Bill introduced in Parliament, land acquisition laws modified to catalyze development in the remote areas while protecting farmers' interests. The government launched the Make in India initiative to convert India into a global hub for manufacturing, design, research and innovation. The government is providing thrust to a dedicated freight corridor and industrial corridors. A National Industrial Corridor Development Authority to oversee the development of new industrial corridors across the country is on the anvil. The Digital India campaign to use technology to leapfrog and spread ICT infrastructure across the country, the Skill India program launched to harness India's youth power with a new skill and entrepreneurship department. To encourage entrepreneurship further, a unified, simple web portal for labour law compliance has also been launched. Returns and register requirements minimized. Online real-time registration of ESIC and EPFO has been launched. To ensure regular and constant flow of apprentices, the Apprentice Act 1961 has been amended. All this with the spirit of maximum governance, minimum government. Urban, regional and rural infrastructure will be the key driver of India's growth. The government is driving a range of rail, road and metro projects. As 700 million Indians get into the process of urbanization, the government is launching Smart Cities program. A major impetus has been provided to the energy sector with the launch of new hydro, gas-based and thermal projects and new generation transmission grids. The coal and mining sector has been streamlined for supply of natural resources in a transparent manner. With sustainability as the key philosophy, 25 mega solar parks have been launched, a green energy transmission corridor has been initiated, and a national target of 20,000 megawatt in solar energy generation fixed. Financial inclusion for the masses has been fast-tracked with the Jan Dhan Yojana. 100 million new bank accounts have been opened already. Recognizing that national development must include quality of life, the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is a movement that has been launched to ensure all-round cleanliness, hygiene and health. It has motivated the entire nation, from hamlets to cities, from celebrity to the common man. As India advances and becomes a modern, technology-driven nation, it must retain its traditional values, heritage and culture. Yoga is India's gift to the world. With the announcement of the UN Yoga Day, yoga went international. With the same spirit, the country is also focusing on cleaning the river Ganga for pure water and purest spirits. A confident, vibrant India facilitated the agreement in WTO for world trade. India's democratic and economic strength were recognized at the G20, ASEAN, BRICS, EAS and SAARC summits. Bilateral meetings led to a plethora of investment agreements. $35 billion from Japan, $50 billion from the USA. FDI has grown by 30%. Inflation is at its lowest. And there is a new energy, vibrancy and dynamism. The OECD has forecast that India is the only country among the top economies to increase its pace of growth. HSBC identified India as the world's largest growing exporter, and IMF has termed India to be the second fastest growing economy in the next 5 years. India is reinventing itself as a major economic power. India is rediscovering itself as a knowledge power, with strong institutions of democracy and a stronger workforce. India is emerging as a global destination.
हमारे पास स्किल है, टैलेंट है, डिसिप्लिन है, कुछ कर गुजरने का इरादा है। हम विश्व को एक सानुकूल अवसर देना चाहते हैं कि आइए, कम मेक इन इंडिया।
I have to say that normally I'm considered to be pretty dynamic, but I feel what I'm up against now with India. Fantastic, and that is what we feel also, what has happened during the last year now, when Prime Minister Modi has come into power together with his government, and a lot of things has actually not only happened on the field, but in reality. And also what Secretary Kant is talking about when it comes to the challenges and also the prime target for India is well in line with also what we see as an opportunity for Scania actually. Urbanization, I'll come back to that, infrastructure development, sustainability, also foreign direct investments, export opportunities from India, etc. I mean, everything that we've heard here is going in line with why Scania now is stepping in bigger than we have done before.
Normally I ask two pretty rhetoric questions. Do we think that mobility will be an increased need in the future given the population we see, for example, in India? And do we think that that must be considerably more sustainable in the future in order to cope with the challenges that we have in the world? And of course, those two questions are answered with a yes. And then, how do we do that? I met with a major in Bogota in Colombia who said to me, you know, Martin, in the future, a city that is developing and is emerging is much more developed, not when the poor people can afford cars, but when the rich people is using public transportation. And I think that is exactly what it's all about, actually. How do we change the game? I had also the opportunity to be in Jakarta last week and met with a new mayor that is also a very dynamic gentleman, talking about what Jakarta needs to do, and it's the same speech. And he said, you know, normally we bought sheep, but if you want he said a very good thing. Think about it. He said, if you are poor, you need to buy the best because you can only buy once. And I think that's pretty interesting when we talk about sustainability. We have a bold statement, Scania, saying we want to be and continue to be the leader in sustainable transport. We have been so for 120 years. The meaning of sustainability, of course, has changed during those 120 years. But basically it's the same. It's a life cycle approach, sustainable environmentally, economically, socially, ethically. And we need to do that together with different parts of the society in order to succeed. Today we are $12 billion top line, 42,000 people around the globe. We have been part of this type of infrastructure, transport development, in many different parts of the world. And since 2007, before we made some spot deals now and then in India, but since 2007, we stepped in together with L&T, a very famous Indian company. And since 2011, commercially established with Scania Commercial Vehicles, Private Limited. And since 2013, truck manufacturing. And 2015 in March, together with Minister Johansson, also for infrastructure and transport, we inaugurating our bus body manufacturing. And that is, of course, a rationale. First of all, why do we do it in India? That is our first major Asian investment when it comes to industrial hub. And we are doing that because we see the opportunities in India. So that is, if I may put it like that, Scania for India. But we see also India for Scania in the global context. If I start with the commercial opportunities in India in itself, we see a huge market, but we are also realistic. We need to target where it's possible to do business today. Mining sector, that is also addressed by the government to make that more sustainable. We have the right solutions. It's fun also because you have some other guys hanging around at the west coast in Sweden, and we meet them everywhere, and that's good. We see also now the intercity lines. I discussed that with the secretary you can buy, and I have to give that to Volvo then. We should be generous, it's a Friday afternoon. You buy a Volvo ticket or a bus ticket, and that's for real when I do the intercity lines, and that's good. And the operator saying, Martin, we need to have an alternative to Volvo in the Volvo class, and here we are. But that's good. That we are starting to roll out now. We have done some pre-production. But even more important, what I think is really exciting, we have a number of projects when it comes to the smart city opportunities now. BRT systems, bus rapid transport. So we create metro systems by buses, separate roads, separate platforms, ticketing systems. But even more important, with Swedish technology, we can go all the way from the residuals on the agriculture side, on the waste collection, we create biogas, we create bioethanol, we fuel the buses, and we create jobs, sustainable jobs in the local community. And that is what it's all about, of course, that we together can create mobility that is sustainable and that is creating job and that is creating opportunities all the way from the farmers into the cities, taking care of the opportunities that all those mega cities are bringing. And here Sweden must shape up. Sweden must shape up and take a much more active stance when the opportunity is coming here and now. It's not 2025 or whatever, it's here and now. And we are there, we are discussing also with some of the Swedish authorities really to go in, for example, with Swedfund, etc. So those are some of the commercial opportunities that will bring 2,500 trucks, 1,000 buses, but the system view of it is much more important. Then, of course, industrial-wise, we have grown now the last 2 years from 30 employees to 650, and we are on our way now with the inauguration up to 1,200 in Bangalore. When we start the production, that is a fully localized bus. We have more than 40 Indian partners now doing all the sub-components for this factory when it comes to the bodyworks. And that will be a very good product, both when it comes to coaches and also for buses for India, but also, as Secretary said, also for export opportunities to Southeast Asia, to Australia, China, Middle East, and also some of those buses will come into European operation. So here we see that we have a truly global system, and that is one of the cornerstones for Scania also going forward. I will not be so much longer right now. What I can say is also that what we feel is it's a big change also, and specifically what has been addressed today. I actually wrote down a couple of notes here that we should also discuss a little bit what must be improved, and that is well under the way to be improved also. Land Acquisition Act, I think, is very important. Also, as we said, really continue to have this focus also that the farmers, etc., are well compensated. We must build a sustainable presence. The goods and service tax bill, very important also in order to create transit flows to get up mileage, because honestly speaking, and I'm an honest guy, it is like this. We need to get up to 150, 200,000 kilometers per year and truck in order to buy Scania. Because it's the fuel consumption, it's the green technology, it's the uptime, it's the quality. Otherwise, customers shall buy something else. So we need to work on the infrastructure. We have a responsibility here as well. So I'm really part of that if we can do something. And then, of course, you have a number of other items when it comes to tax regulation, custom duties. We feel that this is addressed right now. We are working also together with our suppliers when it comes to environmental protection, child labor, etc. We have good cooperations both with authorities and government. So we feel positive. We are continuing our investment here and looking forward for further cooperation. I would like to thank you for coming, showing that interest in and the whole business and government community coming here, and also to the ambassador. Always, I said you should be a sales executive. Maybe that will be in your second career. That's great, both for India and for Sweden. And we have a lot of cooperation also when it comes to ICT and R&D in India, working for Scania Global System. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, there's no shortage of dynamic leaders and speakers, that's for sure. Thank you so much, Martin. You said the opportunities are here and they're now. And how do we actually get to those opportunities? What kind of organization are helping that? Well, there's something called the business facilitation. And two of those organizations are going to talk now. And we will start with the head of business Sweden, Ms. Ylva Berg. Welcome.
Thank you so very much, Robin. Secretary Amitabh Kant, State Secretary Oskar Stenström, dear ambassadors and dear business leaders. How many here are already doing business in India? Fantastic. And how many would like to do even better and more successful business in India? And how many would like to start to do business in India? My name is Ylva Berg, as Robin already presented, and I'm the fairly new CEO of Business Sweden. And Business Sweden is a partly governmentally owned and partly privately owned company that helps Swedish companies to do better business abroad. We have a mission, and that mission is to grow Sweden and Swedish companies through internationalization, but also to attract foreign direct investments to Sweden. We have more than 50 offices abroad. That's pretty much, actually. And 2 of them are located in India, one in Delhi and one in Bangalore. So we have a representation of 22 people headed up by Anna Liberg, and it's a very professional group of people that can help all of you with any type of questions that you might have. So what are we doing more in detail in our offices abroad? Well, we help companies from basically every aspect when it comes to facilitate business. We do market analysis of different type. We help to produce internationalization strategies. We help to sell your products actually in person. And we help to locate partners and distributors of different types. And we help you to analyze your business situation and see how we can improve the business for you. But we can also function as a government-to-government partner to see how we can facilitate and make business easier for you when you come across hurdles. And we do that in partnership with our ambassador in India, Harald, and of course also with the Indian's ambassador here in Stockholm as well. When I talk to my 22 employees in India and ask them how the business situation is right now, they are saying, Ylva, it looks pretty okay, they say. After a couple of years of tough business in India, 2012 and 13, the climate is really going, you can say, upwards, and all the indication is pointing at that Swedish companies in India see a much brighter future. We are releasing a business climate survey next week. I think you can keep your eyes open if you want to. You can go into the Business Sweden website and see more details on when it's being released. We're doing it in partnership with the Swedish Embassy in India and the Swedish Trade Council in India. Now I said wrong, I mean the Swedish Chamber of Commerce in India. And that study is really, really interesting. It shows that 90% of the Swedish companies located in India say that they see a more favorable or even considerably more favorable business climate over the next coming years. That's very optimistic views. We also see and spot another trend, and that is that while Swedish companies mostly do manufacturing or are involved in ICT industries in India, we can see that the consumable industry is growing in importance. And that is normally a very strong indicator of that the middle class is getting more and more wealthy, and they are demanding another type of products. And that has also, of course, caused IKEA and H&M and Rusta and other companies like that to continue to invest and even accelerate their investments in India. And last but not least, this climate study also says that 8 out of 10 Swedish companies in India foresee that they will invest pretty heavy the next coming 3 years. Besides that the market conditions have to be decent, what else is necessary when you try to establish business in a fairly complicated market like India? No matter how inspirational and how positive the trends look like, there are some things that one really has to look at, specifically when it's a complex market that is so huge as India is. First of all, we say that leadership, of course, is really, really important. We prefer to talk about a pretty quick switch from Swedish leadership to local leadership. We think that is really important. We can help you with that. We also think that adaptation is really important. It's about finding out how the market works and how you have to adapt the Swedish business model to the Indian market and really understand that, and being keen on understanding the special traits of how India works. You have to adapt because that is all about market success. But then it's also about driving local sales. It's about building an effective distributors network and complementing that with your own sales force. That's really also key. And last but not least, that is also especially true for India, it's about stakeholder management and understanding how to navigate with the government and understanding on how to ask for help and when to ask for help, and ask for help pretty early, I would say. One company that has been very, very successful, and I would say is almost like a shining star in how they have managed this process, is a really interesting company called HemoQ. Go in and look at their website. It's a really interesting small company. They do medical diagnostics equipment, and they entered the Indian market in 2011, and they have been successful on all these 4 different aspects and really hit it off well in India. We have many other examples, but I like HemoQ because it's not one of the largest companies in Sweden and it's not one of the smallest, but it's one with a very certain technology that have seen its place in the market and that have found a fantastic Indian CEO that is running their business, and they've adjusted their business model to the conditions in India, and they are navigating in the system in a brilliant way. I would like to finish my session by telling you about one project that we have run successfully together with our Indian colleagues. And that's a project called the Innovation Accelerator Program. This program is run by us together with Let me see now here if I can remember. Okay, anyway, we have an esteemed Indian colleague. I'm coming up with the name fairly soon. But it's also run together with the Swedish agency, energy agency. And what we are trying to do is that we're trying to find ways for SMEs, small and mid-sized enterprises, to work successfully together from now and into the future. We have been running this program for 2 years, and we have helped 40 companies to do matchmaking, and with a very, very good result. It's in the areas of clean energy, clean and efficient energy, and clean tech. What we see is a lot of promising conditions, and we see a lot of indicators that say that India is really a market that most Swedish companies should really look at and see and investigate if it is a market opportunity for you and your companies and your services. But we also see a need for you to take these market opportunities and translate them for what your formula will look like in order to create success in India in the future. Business Sweden and Swedish business, we are very firmly grounded in the Indian society. We have been doing business there for a long time, and then already in 1903, Ericsson started their business in India. I would say that there are many good opportunities, and I would like to welcome all of you to come to us, ask for advice if you have any questions, and we will do our uttermost to help you out to run successful business in India. And thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ylva. I think you reminded me of something. Actually, I'll take 10 seconds to explain one thing. There are a couple of organizations working with the business promotion in that sense, and we have 3 of them which actually have similar names, and usually people don't know the difference between them. So the Sweden-India Business Council, which I represent, we actually is a business network which help the companies here throughout the lifetime. Then you have the Business Sweden, which will help the companies into India, which you heard fantastic about from Ylva, and then you have the Swedish Chamber of Commerce in India. So there are 3 different organizations working together and not competing. So I think that's very important to understand as well. Our next speaker, I think also represents an organization which signifies something you should all think about when you do business with India, and that's volume. This organization represents about 250,000 companies. That's volume. Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Didar Singh. Sorry.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Didar Singh. I'm Mr. Kant's chauffeur. And that's not a joke. You know, these government types, they can come in and say, we'll do this, and we'll do digital India, we'll make in India, we'll skill India. But at the end of the day, it doesn't happen unless business does it. And that's why we are important. That's why it's nice. I mean, some of you are students here, some of you are business people here. You have to realize that the connect really between Sweden and India is all about business. When you heard Ericsson came in 1903, they didn't come there because somebody told them it's a great place to go and do yoga. They went there because there was business. That's what we represent. You just heard. Our organization, which is called the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, started in 1927. It's a federation, so other chambers are our members. And as was just being mentioned to you, we represent, therefore, direct and indirectly, we represent 250,000 companies in India. That's volume for you, but that's volume not just in India. That's volume at a global level. Makes us, therefore, one of the largest business organizations in the world. Now, what do business organizations do? And what is the role that they need to play? You've heard the old story. They were basically started both in Europe as in the US. They started as lobby groups. Today, it's gone far beyond that. Today, it's gone far beyond that, and we've ended up becoming chauffeurs. Because we have to now really drive the economy. We have to take it to places where the world is growing in a manner which is today one market. And this is the point I wanted to make. This morning I was mentioning a very significant saying of the famous Alfred Nobel, who said, "My work is my home, and I work everywhere." That's what that represented. Work is no more home. Work is no more one place. You just heard that there are 160 companies of Sweden that work in India. I don't know how many of you are aware that there are over 70 companies of India that work in Sweden. It's becoming one large global market. And in this one large global market, when you say make in India, you don't say only for India. You say for the world. And why do you say for India? And why do we have to link that to the world? Because whenever we talk of India and we talk of economy in the 21st century, we end up comparing ourselves to China. Many Swedish companies are in China. Of course they would be there. It's good business. But as the Chinese economy begins to slow down, there is going to be a shift. And the only other market and the only other place where you will find both entrepreneurs and human resource and finances and opportunity is going to be India. I don't know how many of you are aware that within 10 years' time, China, which people are not so aware of, is also aging, just like Europe is. There is going to be a shortage of 100 million labor in China in 10 years' time. 100 million. It's not a joke. It's a very, very large reality which is staring at the Chinese market. Where will therefore manufacturing go? Of course, it will go to the other emerging markets, but it will go to markets which combine what I'm just mentioning, both entrepreneurship and market together. There are not many people not many places in the world that offer that. And that is the reason why representatives like me who represent business talk to you, talk to the Swedish India Business Council, talk to Swedish Chamber of Commerce to say that if you want to take the opportunity, this is when you need to come. Not 5 years later, not 10 years later. You come in at the bottom of the curve, and the benefits of it will be that much more. Of course, Swedish companies have been in India for many, many years, and we are aware of that. You've heard of Ericsson and so many others, and Scania and Volvo, and everybody's there. But the real key and the real connect will happen when the small and medium companies also begin to connect in India. And that's where I want to offer services of organizations like ours, whose specialization is to connect the small and medium through our various connectivities and through what we run with the Ministry of Industries in Government of India. We run an organization called Invest India. Invest India was established 4 years ago by the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry and the Government of India to promote investment within India. And we're in the process of trying to do an MOU with Business Sweden. And we'll do that because the objectives are the same. The objectives are to help Swedish companies come to India and facilitate their work out there. It is a complicated market. It's not an easy market. And hats off to the 160 Swedish companies which are already there. I'm sure you face a lot of problems. Indian companies do. But we don't sit quiet about the problems that we face. We make a lot of noise about it. And that's why when I say that I'm the chauffeur for the government, it's because we are the ones, the chauffeur is the only one who's close enough to complain to the master, to complain that the car is not good enough and you need to change some of its tires. And that's what we do. We complain about the taxation situation, we complain about ease of doing business, we complain about infrastructure. And by that, because we are a democracy and because our voice is heard, we are able to together bring in the change that is coming into India. And we are all very proud of it. We are all very proud of it because in the 21st century, it is the responsibility of democracies to stand up and be counted. Because there are several issues which are confronting the human race, and it's not just about business. It's about the whole way of life. And that way of life that you represent and the way of life that we represent is something that has to be fought for together. And youngsters here who are also in the school of business, as you grow up and as you realize that you need to find your place and you need to make a lot of noise about it, whether it's an environment issue, whether it's an innovation issue, whether it's a pollution issue, whether it's a sanitation issue, whether it's a safety issue. All these are issues that we have to address together. And organizations like ours work in each one of these issues that we've talked about. It may appear that we were lobby groups at one time, but today we are somebody, in fact, an organization like FICCI, we work in 74 different sectors and verticals, including things like inclusive governance, including things like women's safety, including things like population control and health and education and all the whole rest of it, because these are issues that confront all of us on a daily basis. And as we work with Swedish companies, as we welcome Swedish companies into India, and as you welcome Indian companies into Sweden, we'll have to ensure that the standards and the realities of doing business are common in both places. Because together alone is what we have to ensure to make sure that this world and all of you, when you go out to find your jobs and do whatever else you have to do and innovate and become great citizens of this wonderful world of ours, that we are able to find a place and sustain it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. Now I'd like to invite all the speakers up on stage. So we'll have a small little Q&A session. And if you have any questions, I have one I would like to start with. And it goes to State Secretary Kant, for all of you to answer afterwards also. You mentioned that one of the reasons for making India so important is that people want change. But is that enough to get the ripple effects of the Make in India campaign down to a state level, municipality level?
You need Make in India for the simple fact that there are huge perils of premature deindustrialization. It can happen in advanced countries where the per capita income is very high. But there are huge perils if you're trying to do this in a country where the per capita income is low. And therefore, manufacturing, many of us in India started believing that you've skipped the process of manufacturing, you've gone into services sector, and services sector will take you into the league of the advanced countries. And to my mind, that has very severe consequences in the long run, simply because you have to create jobs for people. And the manufacturing sector creates, for every job that you create 4 jobs in the services sector. And therefore, job creation is the critical imperative for government. If you're not able to create jobs, no government can survive. And I think manufacturing is what is going to drive India, and it's necessary to create jobs, and that's why we're doing a number of things in partnership with the states and the municipality, and one of the key things we are doing is to create this e-biz platform, which we have done, where all the services of the state, the municipality, and the central government are merged together. And you make payment at one place, and you have one single form, which will cover all the clearances for the municipality, the state, and the central government, and one payment which will then get apportioned across all states. Now, the important thing is to create a sense of competition amongst the states. That if the states are not going to move forward, that state will go bust, because those states will attract investment which are progressive, which are market-friendly, and which are able to facilitate and catalyze investments. Those states will grow. It's so obvious in India. Actually, if you look at Gujarat, in the last decade, it's grown at higher rates than what China has grown. One state in India. So other states are trying to compete with Gujarat, and Maharashtra in the last 1 month has carried out such radical reforms which are unbelievable. So states are going to compete, and we are going to evaluate the states at the end of July. So those states which are going to not be able to bring in radical reforms will just fall out.
Yeah. Any comments there, Ambassador or Dr. Singh? Just follow up quickly on.
Well, we're taking selfies here.
Oh, you take. I thought we'll take one, all of us later on, but hold on.
We're busy doing selfies here.
Excellent.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all the things you're doing in India, but I mean, our mission in the Swedish government is to prepare the Swedish business and the Swedish society how we can plug in. And obviously, we are heavily dependent on our single market in the European Union. And there we can see that the growth rate will be much, much lower than your friends in Gujarat and in India overall. So while expanding and making the single market even better, that's our first priority and potential, as 73% of our trade is with the single market. But we have to be sure that we will adapt and be better in going into new export markets. And that's why my new government, with a proposal from me and Mikael Damberg, has made a new priority list for the Swedish government, where we would like as go together with the business into new markets. And then we're speaking about China, India, Saudi Arabia, Africa, Colombia, markets which is much trickier than our single market. So we need infrastructure like Ylva is providing. We need a better ecosystem with AKN, our guarantee bank. We need SAK, and we need also the universities to be plugged into these new countries if we would like to perform well as an export country in the future.
One thing Oscar is very clear, as a very dynamic secretary of the government of Sweden, is that the future of the Swedish companies is not in Sweden, it is in India.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, Ambassador, you want to comment?
No, I have to come in on that almost as if I'm the Swedish ambassador. I think the future of Swedish and Indian companies is both in Sweden and India, because we have to go hand in hand together.
Absolutely.
Let me just add to that. I mean, one very, very important point, which, especially for the economists here, are greatly important. You know, Sweden, by definition, is obviously a small market. So you have moved into the whole EU area, and you've moved all over the world. In that context, what the ambassador is mentioning of India and Sweden having this connectivity and the markets available to it, what is extremely important is the India-EU free trade agreement.
Yeah.
We shouldn't forget that, and as economists here, you have to understand the implication that will have on trade and investment. Because suddenly, you have a market which trebles in its size. And therefore, while we talk about all this and make our promotions and our points and all the rest of that, I think for you as a government leader and our Secretary Kant here as representing the Indian government, it's important for us to go on plugging on this, because it's been in the air for some time, but it hasn't been concluded. And it's important, therefore, that we focus on it, make sure it happens, despite whatever glitches it may have while we talk about it, and deliver on it.
Sure. Ylva, you have a comment, please.
Yeah, I think if I should try to kind of bring this down to a more practical level, on the more company level, when you're contemplating whether India is something for you and whether you would dare to take the step. I think that one thing that I think is important is to look at what other Swedish companies that are already there, because oftentimes I get the question whether we are working with big, small or medium-sized companies. But Business Sweden is working with both big companies, small and medium-sized. And the reason for that is that we see a very good synergy effect for small and medium-sized companies to come in when the big ones are already there, because they create an infrastructure for the ones that are the new beginners. And to some extent, it's possible to work as sub-suppliers to the larger companies, but you can also, it forms like a community where you can get the hints and the advices on how to be successful. So if you both see that there is an established community of good and well-known Swedish companies combined with the market growth and the enormous demand that we see developing in India, it's really good circumstances to contemplate whether you might have a business that could fit into the future of India. So I think that from many perspectives, India is an extremely interesting market, even for smaller companies as it is right now.
Absolutely. Martin.
Now, one thing that I think also often when you talk about emerging markets, you say, okay, what type of technologies should we take an old generation, or shall we do this and that, which is completely wrong, because often you need to rethink, as Ylva said also in your speech, the business model. And what we see, for example, if you take a truck or a bus from Scania in relation to local products, it's a 1 to 5 in price. So you can do incremental improvements when you're competing with the Daimlers and the Volvos and the MANs or whatever in Europe. But here you need to rethink the business model of the life cycle. How do you provide actually mobility per passenger kilometers, ton kilometers? How do you do with the sustainability? I mean, you skipped the fixed network and went into mobility, and you will skip, I mean, a stick at the ground and create real corridors for public transport or buses. And you will do that leap that Europe is still discussing now for the last 40 years and say, okay, let's build a metro line, and that will come 2030. And by the way, I have an advice. Talking about being re-elected, build the BRT system. That is done in 4 years, so that is within the mandate period. And that's the same in Sweden as well.
Good. Actually, let me follow up on that a little bit. Also
to a fragment of investment,
sure.
By the way.
Let me follow up, actually, which is interesting.
The election were not in March.
Could be tight.
That could be tight.
Life cycle investment, which a lot of the Swedish companies have. I mean, they have products which are more functional on a long-term life cycle. How's the Indian government actually looking towards when you do your public tenders and everything? Are you going to look at the life cycle as well?
No, that's a very important point.
And not the level one, that's the question.
That's a very important point. And one of the key things that started happening in the defense procurement, for instance, is to evaluate on the basis of life cycle cost of technology rather than look at the lowest cost. The important thing is that when you create infrastructure, it's not like buying a glass, or it's not what you buy at the lowest cost. You are creating good quality highways, BRTs, metros. When you create new cities, you're creating them for the next 150 to 200 years. Right. You can't do them at the lowest cost. You have to do them at the life cycle cost of technology. And I am a great believer that you need to evaluate technologies on the life cycle, not on the lowest price ever.
I'm just smiling here. I think we'll follow up there, then we have one question there and then there. Sure.
No, I was just going to mention that along with this life cycle cost, there's another very important issue we need to look at whenever we talk of sustainability. It's become very fashionable to say everything must be sustainable, everything must be eco-friendly, everything must be X, Y, Z. Therefore, you talk in terms of transporting solutions from America and your buses you were just mentioning about. The solutions that are available today to the world do not necessarily work in India. Why? A, the environment is totally different, but a second very important point, which I think we have to all understand about innovation, which is it has to be affordable. Unless the solutions are affordable, there is no point in talking in terms of solutions. And that's something extremely important to remember when investing in India, especially in these massive hundreds new cities and et cetera, and the corridors which are being built and what have you. Unless you can offer sustainable solutions. The top side on this, of course, is as you see with your buses. Maybe it's so much more costly than the Indian-made trucks or buses that you do, but the volumes justify it. So you have cheaper solutions, but larger volumes. It's plain economics. If you can manage to find a balance within that, you'll succeed in India.
Affordable sustainability in that sense. Yes, question at the end.
Hi, can you hear me? First of all, thank you so much for your very exciting presentations. I think we're all in this room are ready to get on the next flight to India and help you guys build 2.5 United States in the next 35 years, especially when the weather is as dreadful as it is in Stockholm. Before I ask my question, personal advice to Secretary Stenström. Traveled to India on my honeymoon when my hair started getting gray 10 years ago. I do yoga every day. It works. And to the ambassador's point, my wife is a yoga teacher, and I think that the divorce statistics in Sweden go down if we do more yoga. My name is CJ Westring. I represent the EF Education First. We're the world's largest education company with 41,000 staff in 53 countries. We've been in India for several decades, and we've got a big office in Bangalore with 300 staff. So we're happy to see Scania build a factory there. My question is to Secretary Kant. You have amazing opportunities, but also quite a few challenges. One of them, which was debated at length last week at the Education World Forum in London, where I had the opportunity to talk to both representatives at the federal level and state level in India, is English proficiency. And it's somewhat unexpected in a country where everyone would think that you speak English. India ranks 25th out of 63 countries in our annual survey. And although it's on top of the BRIC countries, of the 4 BRIC countries, it lags countries like South Korea, Singapore, and perhaps surprisingly Malaysia. So my first question is, given that there's a correlation between English proficiency and some of the indicators you mentioned, like ease of doing business, foreign direct investments, but also net exports per capita, gross national income per capita, and human development index, do you share that concern? That's the first question. The second question is about other human capital and soft skills in the labor market, given the demographics of India. What are the key human capital that you need to build in India, given your demographics over the next couple of decades? In our recent survey with the Economist Intelligence Unit, industry says that it's the role of the education system to develop skills like creativity, which drives innovation. Now, interestingly, the educators say it's the role of the industry. So that's the second question. Do you think it's the role of the industry or education in India? Now, if you want to deflect that to your driver, Dr. Singh, feel free to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Incidentally, what was the question?
Yeah. Can you repeat, please? No.
First question, do you share the concern about the lack of English proficiency in India? And second one about the
You made some very important,
the soft skills,
very important and very significant points. In India, we've laid a lot of stress and huge amount of allocations for higher education over the years. And we've built up some great temples of education. Our IITs and our Indian Institute of Management are some of the finest in the world. And actually, we produce a huge number of engineers. So there's been some outstanding delivery as far as IITs and IIMs are concerned. There's been focus on primary education, but the challenges are enormous with a population of 1.2 billion. And one of the key things that this government has done is to embark on this policy of skill development and entrepreneurship right at the school level. It's created a unique department for skill and entrepreneurship. And to my mind, training has to be necessarily in partnership with the private sector. The curriculum, essentially a person getting trained must be able to get a job. And that job has to be tailor-made for the industry to which he's going to get a job. So while there has to be some amount of infrastructure creation by the government, the curriculum, the training has to be driven by the private sector. It has to be on the models of what the dual training mechanism is all about. And to my mind, that's what the government is striving for, that let a large amount of population get into skilled labor force. And you will see this being tackled in a very, very, in a great mission approach in the years to come.
Yeah. Ambassador.
I'd just like to chip in for a moment that this, in fact, you've touched on one of the areas where I personally feel Sweden can play a more high-profile role in India, and I dream of having a Sweden-India Institute of Technology in India, because so many companies there which have such excellent technologies need skilled manpowers, which they're facing a shortage of. If you face a problem, be a part of the solution.
Very good. Okay. We have one. I think we have only time for 2 more questions. We'll start there and then we'll start. Yeah. And then we'll wrap up. Yeah, I know. He's the second.
Well, I am a scientist here at Stockholm University for nearly 50 years. I have followed the Indian growth during the last 30 years, especially on the energy sector. You mentioned that India is planning to have growth rate of about 8 to 10%. That means that the power growth, there is no magic. For every growth, you need a power. And if you plan to have energy growth at the level of 8-10% every year over the next 20-30 years, that means the power has to grow by a factor of 7 to 10 times more than what it is today. And I think this is one of the most serious problems facing India and China, that 70% of our power growth is through coal. We are making a big effort to have the environmental free solar energy, wind energy, but when you want to increase the energy by a factor of 7 to 10 times more in the coming 20-30 years, it is a tremendous challenge, and what effort has been made to meet this challenge?
The Saudis just solved the problem for us.
The Saudis
just solved the problem for us. Because in the energy basket, you have, petroleum available so much cheaper.
Actually, the Prime Minister has launched on a very major campaign, which unfortunately we didn't touch upon, is the renewable energy campaign, and to target for 100,000 megawatt of power from renewable energy. It's the very major launch of it is on February 17th, 18th, but India is at a point where the price of power through renewable, through solar, is almost reached the point of convergence with power coming in from coal. And therefore, India has pushed for solar in a very, very big way across. It's been a very, very successful scheme in Gujarat. It's been fairly successful in Rajasthan, but it's one of the most ambitious programs of this government is to push for renewables.
Okay, final question there.
And just to comment that also, I think it's not a linear curve. I mean, when you're actually growing economy-wise, you will also gain efficiency when it comes, for example, as I mentioned, for logistics. Today, India's GDP share of logistic share of GDP is 16%. In China, it's 19. In Europe, it's 7. In US, it's 10. In Brazil, it's 13. And why I'm saying that is because India will go from 16 to 20, 21 before coming down. And the reason is that you will have optimization in the production system before logistics. Logistics is more complicated, more actors. And therefore it will come down, and then you will have a non-linear curve when it comes to energy utilization in relation to growth. And that is a sustainability curve as well.
Very interesting, very interesting. Yeah.
Per Emerson from Kunskapsskolan. I was very pleased to listen to Secretary Kant about the role of entrepreneurs in India. You know, I looked at India 7 years ago. We started schools 2 years ago. We're now about 1,000 students, and our plans call for about 10,000 in 10 years from now. You should talk to your colleague from Sweden. Private entrepreneurship is more appreciated in India than in Sweden, actually. But my question to you is that we have a fantastic market, lots of possibilities, but we are looking at the maintained sector, the public sector in education. And I'm asking you, have you been thinking about letting us entrepreneurs coming in and also helping to run those schools? Because we would really like to get into education also for much poorer people than those that can afford in the marketplace where we are at present.
Interesting question.
At the same time, I should say, as a contribution to Sweden, we have now our development center for education material in India. It's fantastic quality, much lower costs. We are benefiting for the development of Swedish education with the help of what we are doing in India.
I think there's some very unique models of education happening in India right now. I was district collector in a place called Calicut in Kerala, and this young entrepreneur who sold off his company came in, and the government of Kerala gave him a school which was 100% for girls, all girls school. They gave it to him, and he tied up with the Indian Institute of Management in Calicut. And, he redid the building, he trained the teachers, he brought in playing fields, and last year in the board examination for Kerala, out of the top 15 students, top 12 out of 15 were from that one school, and one entrepreneur made that difference. So across India, you're seeing a huge amount of private sector play in education. India is too big for the government to manage its primary education system. Private sector has got in vast number of areas. Rajasthan, Bihar, Tamil Nadu, a whole range of states have opened up primary education. The state just cannot run this education system in a very efficient manner anymore. And private sector is playing a very critical, very major, very significant role. You are most welcome. We'll be very happy to welcome you to India. Please relocate yourself in India.
I think we'll end with that phrase. Please relocate yourself to India. Wonderful. This is some small appreciation of you coming here to the Stockholm School of Economics for Dr. Singh and Mr. Kant, thank you so much. Then we have something for our Swedish guests as well.
My yoga man.
And now I'd like to introduce the Chief Executive of India Limited, while our speakers have a seat. Mr. Sanjoo Malhotra, please.
Thank you. Hey, I know this is Fika time, so I'll really take just a few minutes. Fika is a Swedish tradition for our Indian guests, and it's an important time when they get together and they actually make new connections or they develop their relationships. And this is something that we do with India Unlimited. The idea is very much about creating a platform which is a communications platform that's helping both the Sweden to be seen better in India and India to be better seen and heard in Sweden. And so we're looking at the economic part, which is a major part of what we're going to do, and also culture. We're looking for more sort of people-to-people ties, looking at how in areas like education, in design, in innovation and creativity, how can we develop better contacts between Sweden and India, and of course travel and tourism. And one of the big things that we're trying to do is look at the synergies, because what we see are fantastic synergies between Sweden and India, whether it comes to Indian entrepreneurship and Swedish innovation or Swedish design, the big Indian fantastic market, the youth part of India, and so on. And what we did last year were a series of business seminars that we'll be repeating, and I just wanted to touch quickly on each one of them. If you can just take it. Yeah, next one. Thank you. So we had seminars like on gender and diversity and on reimagining India, which was very much about where will India be in 2025 and where do we see, where will Sweden be in relation to that? We had fantastic seminars on R&D, on innovation called Co-Creating the Future, and ICT security and future healthcare. And then, of course, looking at solutions for the future, for future cities. This year, in May, will be our second edition of the Sweden plus India Week, where the focus will be smart, sustainable cities, and also in areas like travel. I mean, we will basically repeat most of the subject areas that you've seen here. Last year, we had about 1,200 delegates over 3 days, and we covered about these 9 seminars, which we plan to repeat. And the other thing that we expected was with culture, because it's really important to lift that up. We had Vogue from India, we had Indian design. This was also really important to sort of connect Sweden and India. And my last slide is basically about the upcoming events. In March 6th, we have the IMF director here at the Stockholm School of Economics. We will do a breakfast seminar with them. And in May 23rd, we're going to do a big yoga day at Kungsträdgården. So if you love yoga, please come there. We'll provide you with yoga mats, and you can practice yoga just around the water, right in the heart, in the location of Stockholm. We will also have a fantastic Indian cuisine. We'll also have Indian culture to show Stockholm what India is all about. And please book in your calendars May 25th and 26th, where we'll have a series of seminars, roundtables, and fantastic opportunities for networking and connecting with the business delegations that will be visiting from India. Before I end, I would like to basically say thank you to all our fantastic speakers, to Stockholm School of Economics for letting us host this event along with them, Business Sweden, Sweden-India Business Council, Indian Embassy. We're really thankful to all our partners, to Scania for your fantastic support. Thank you.